everybody, Michelle here in Northern Illinois, Zone 5. Today we're in the kitchen. Why are we in the kitchen? Well, we're in the kitchen because I grew a mess of herbs and we need to use them up. I am going to be infusing oils, vinegars, and butters. It's what I love to do with that last crop that I harvest at the end of the year. And by the time we're done with this video, you're going to be like, why wasn't I doing that? The stuff that we're going to make is so flavorful and so easy to use. And I'm a little bit of a foodie, so I love to cook. And I have culled down all the recipes I've tried over the years to the ones that I'm going to show you today, because these are the ones that I use the most. And I've made other ones and then they've sat in the cupboard and I've never used them. Now, these might not be your go-tos, but I'm going to get you started anyways with the ones that I love, because you might eat different things than I eat. But we're going to infuse vinegars first, and then I'll show you butters, and then we'll do oils. So everything that we're going to do is to be about food. It's not going to be about beauty products or anything like that. It's just food only today. Okay, so this morning I got up and I went out to the gardens. It was after the dew had dried, but before the heat of the sun. So it was like 8:30. I got out there, and it took me maybe 30 minutes, and I picked all my herbs. So I have quite the collection of herbs behind me here that we're going to use to do the vinegars. So in vinegars, you can actually use fresh herbs. And some of the things that you need to do your infusion for your vinegars is obviously one, a vinegar. And in just a minute, we'll talk about the different kinds of vinegars so that you can pick the right one for you. The other things you need are, you need a glass measuring pitcher, because remember, measuring volume is different, like in a glass measuring cup like this versus a cup like this. So I'm going to use a volume measure like this. I do have a funnel that fits down inside of my mason jars. And you can go find fancy cutesy little jars and things like that. But the reality is you don't store these out on your counter. It breaks them down too fast. I store mine in a dark, cool, dry place. And so I don't care what my jar looks like. I care that my jar is functional. So I just use mason jars that I use for canning. I have different sizes that I use. I have some big ones. I have some, these are quart, these are pint. The only big thing that I do though is I go out and I buy these plastic lids. So they look like this. I bought these at Walmart. They are a package of 8, and they have skinny ones, and then they have the bigger ones for the wide mouth jars. Because when you're working with vinegars, vinegar and metal don't like each other. They rust. And so you don't want to use this lid unless you're going to line this with wax paper or saran wrap and you're sure that it's not going to leak out and you're going to dry the lid every time. It's just, for me, there's too much of a chance that that's going to rust. So I go get the plastic lids. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need herbs, okay? So in vinegars, I use a lot of fresh herbs. You can use dried herbs. The rule of thumb is for every 2 cups of vinegar that you use, you're going to use either 1 cup of fresh or you're going to use a half a cup of dried. So one or the other. I've never used a combination of both. I just use one or the other. Typically in vinegars, I'm using fresh herbs. I don't have a chance for them to mold or do anything like that. 1, they're in a really high acidic product, which is vinegar. And 2, I am straining them out once I get them to the desired strength that I want. Then I strain them through a cheesecloth, which you need cheesecloth and a funnel. And what I do is after they're done infusing, I will just pour them from this jar into a new jar, and I make sure that I sanitize everything in between each use. The other thing you need is you do need a sharp knife. And the reason you need a sharp knife is because when we go to cut some of the herbs, which some we will cut, some we won't, we want to make sure that we're not bruising the herbs and that we're getting those nice cuts on the herbs. So therefore you need a sharp knife. So if you don't have one, get one or sharpen your knife. The first 2 herbs that I'm going to talk about are the 2 that everyone is the most familiar with. Distilled vinegar, and it's made from grains. This is apple cider vinegar, and it's made from apple cider. I never use this one to infuse herbs. It is way too harsh. I use that to get hard water stains off of my windows and my stainless steel, and yeah, that's what I use that vinegar for. I don't use it for anything else but cleaning purposes. I don't use it in anything whatsoever in my kitchen. Now, apple cider vinegar I do use in my kitchen. It is got a nice flavor to it, but it is a little bit on the stronger side. So when you're using this one, it's more tuned in to use your stronger flavored herbs in an apple cider vinegar. All right, the next 2 vinegars I'm going to talk about are your white wine and your red wine vinegars. These are made from wines. Now, this one is a little more robust, and this one is a little lighter. This one is good for making stews and stir-fry sauces. So it's going to have your heavier flavored herbs in something like this. This is lighter, salad dressings and things like that. And so this is going to make a really nice infusion with the lighter flavored herbs. So either of these are great to use to infuse herbs. Now there is a rosé that's kind of like somewhere in between the two, but I just stick with these two, red and white. It's what I like. They don't have to be crazy expensive because you're adding the flavor to them to make them awesome. Now, the next two that I'm going to talk about are two that I don't know that a lot of people use, but I do. I like them. This is a champagne vinegar, and this is a lighter vinegar as well, but it has a different flavor than the white, and it does infuse wonderfully with those herbs that you like in salad dressing. So we're going to be making a base with this one for that. And then there's a sherry vinegar, Asian salad dressings and stir fries that I use, and I love this one. So both of these are lighter flavored, and you'll find that the lighter they are, the lighter the flavor is, the more they start moving towards dark color, the more robust they are. So this is kind of like an in-between, and this one is a light. So champagne and sherry vinegar are also two that you can use, and we'll be using them today. The other one that I like is a rice vinegar. So rice vinegar I like to use and create Asian infused vinegars, and I use this in my Asian cooking, and I love this. I use this one to make some really nice Asian dressings because I like some of those salads with the cabbages in it, and this is fantastic. So we'll be making one of these as well. It's super easy, and it's like my only one that I make with the rice vinegar, but I love it. There are other vinegars out there that you can try too. There's malt vinegar, there's balsamic vinegar. I usually buy a higher end balsamic vinegar anyways, and I don't infuse either one of those. I don't really like malt vinegar and I don't use it. I use balsamic vinegar and I just kind of use it on its own, or I'll reduce it into a glaze. That's pretty much the only way I use that one. But you can certainly try some recipes with those as well. Spices are the other thing that you can use when you're infusing oils, vinegars, or butters. And so I like to use orange peel, mustard seed, lemon peel, bay leaf works good, whole allspice, any of these, the cloves, the celery seed, coriander, peppercorns, and even ginger and fresh garlic when I'm doing the vinegars. Now, I don't use any powdered or ground up herbs in my vinegars at all. It makes it cloudy, and I find that it doesn't infuse well. You do better using like seeds or whole spices. So that's what I use. And so you can use different ones based on what you like. Now, when you're using ginger and garlic, one of the things you're going to do is you're going to peel it and you're just going to use it whole. And this, I just peel the outside off and I just cut it and I put it into the container. I don't crush it in any way, shape, or form. They'll infuse whole, and that's just how I do it. Some of the fresh herbs that you can use to infuse in your vinegars, and these I picked this morning. This is sage, so this is just a regular garden sage. One plant is plenty to give you everything you need. This is a tarragon. Now, I plant 2 tarragons because I use it a lot. I like it fresh, I like it infused, and I like it dry. So I have 2 plants of tarragon that I cut off of. I also have a lemongrass. And so this is the lemongrass here. And some of you are probably like, oh, cool, we're going to learn how to use that. And I never knew what to do with it either. So now I infuse it. I also have some hot and spicy oregano and some onion chives. I didn't bring any garlic chives because when I'm infusing the vinegars, I like to use whole garlic versus garlic chives. And so I like the flavor of the onion chives better. I also have some lemon thyme in here. I picked a little bit of lavender. We're not going to be using that, but I do have some lemon thyme. I have some peppermint. This is just a little bit here. I have lemon verbena, which is, here you go, right here. This is my lemon verbena. I also have some pesto basil, and I love this basil. I grew it for the first time last year, and I'm telling you, you don't have to pinch the flowers off of this, and it has a great flavor. It's very versatile, so I really like it. I have curly parsley, which is right here, and then I have some Italian oregano right here. I don't have any Greek fresh, and I didn't have any of the Italian parsley because I ran out, so I'm just going to use what I have, and this is the last of my booty from outside that we grew this year. This first one I'm going to make is for Asian cooking. I love to use this one because it's good in a stir fry. And typically what I do is the vinegar is the base and it's got all that beautiful flavor in it because I totally infused it. And then I'm going to add, I don't know, fish sauce or soy sauce, whatever Asian sauces that you like to add to it. And so sometimes I like the sherry based vinegar, and I'll use fish sauce, soy sauce, just a pinch of sugar and then a little cornstarch. And then I'll pour that over my stir fry. Mwah. Oh, it is so good. I love it. It's really good with chicken or pork because they're, you know, white meats and it's a lighter sauce and they're really super good. You can also make a dressing out of it too. So you could actually add a sesame oil to it, maybe a little sesame seeds, maybe a little maple sugar, mix that up, and then that makes a nice Asian dressing as well. You can leave the maple syrup out if you don't want it to be on the sweet side. Maybe you want it to be more on the acidic side, or if you want a creamy dressing, you can add mayonnaise to it. So either way you use this, it's fabulous. Now, when it's all said and done, I'm going to end up with a jar like this of vinegar, but because I'm stuffing so many ingredients in here, I need to have a bigger jar for it to infuse. So what I'm doing is I have cleaned a head of garlic. So I cleaned up a whole head of garlic, and I'm taking half of this head of garlic and I'm putting it in my jar. I'm also took half of that ginger that I showed you, and I'm putting half of the ginger in here. Okay, so I'm putting that in there. The other thing I did was I did take my lemongrass and I just cut the bottom. So I want this nice woody part here. So remember, you want 1 cup of herbs to, 2 cups of vinegar. So I have about 1/3 of a cup of these stems. All right, and then I use the lemon verbena, and I've got 1/3 cup of lemon verbena, and that's stem and all. I just shove it in there. Make sure you clean everything before you put it in there, and you're not shoving little bugs in there. And then I also have 1/3 of a cup of cilantro that I'm going to shove in there. And I had to go buy the cilantro because my spring crop is long gone, and it doesn't grow well in the heat of the summer, and I needed it for another dish as well, so I didn't get a fall crop in, so I had to go buy it. I have measured out 2 cups of the sherry vinegar. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour this over the top. There it is. Okay. And I'm going to put my lid on. And remember, not a metal lid. You want a plastic lid. Okay. And then what you're going to do is shake it up. And then I'm going to go I'm going to put a label on it. And then I'm going to stick it in my cupboard. And like in 2 weeks, once a week I'll shake it up. And then in 2 weeks, I'll go check the flavor and see if it's where I want it. If it is, then I will take it and put it into a new, clean, sterile jar. But I will run it through my little sieve here. So what I'll do basically is put that on top of there, put some cheesecloth on there, and then pour it through so that I catch all of the herbs and I'm left with only the vinegar. This is good for maybe 6 to 8 months in here. So I only make like this size. That's plenty for me to get through the winter. I can make a lot of different things with that. It's just Glenn and I. So I only make what I can use. If I make more than that, then I end up wasting it. Now I know some of you are like, you didn't heat that vinegar up and infuse those herbs. You don't need to. I don't like to do that because I think it takes away from the flavor of the vinegar, and I think it weakens it. And I think it's perfectly fine to do it at room temperature. I also think there's a little bit of a cloudiness issue when you do it that way, so I never do it that way. I always just pour the vinegar in cold on top. I cold infuse. It's easy, and I don't have to mess with anything hot or anything on the stove. These are going to be good for 6 to 8 months in your cupboard, and so you want to make sure you label and put a date on everything that you make. The next one I'm going to make a smaller amount because I don't use this one as often. This one is going to be made with a rice vinegar. Now, we like to eat lettuce wraps, and this is what I use to make my hoisin sauce with. So everything that's in this is typically ingredients that I use to make the hoisin sauce, but instead of having to put everything in the pan every single time, I just infuse it in here. I also like this as a sub sauce. I didn't know that I would, but I really do. So I use it both ways. So I'm going to use rice vinegar, and this time I'm just going to use 1 cup and 1/2 cup of the packed herbs. Now, when I do this one, I'm just going to put the ginger and the garlic in the bottom. This is the other half of the stuff from before. I'm going to put 1/2 cup of cilantro in here, and then I'm going to use rice vinegar. And believe it or not, it's going to have a totally different flavor than this one. Now, this one, see, I labeled it, so it's ready to go. This one's going to have kind of a lemon undertone to it because we used the lemongrass and the lemon verbena. But these will be my 2 Asian sauces. My hubby and I also like a little bit of heat with our stuff, so I am going to put a dried cayenne pepper in this. This is 30,000 to 50,000 on the Scoville scale. And these are cayennes that I picked last year and dried. So I'm going to find me a nice one like that. And I'm going to drop that in there as well. And it'll infuse that as well. And then I've got this nice packed half cup of cilantro seed and stems and all. Just stuff it down in there. And then I'm going to get my 1 cup of rice vinegar. Pour it on top, seal it, shake it once a week. There you go. So fun to experiment with different recipes and everything too. All right. There it is. Sweet. Oh my gosh, I could be the bag lady. Look at that. That's all rosemary. I picked that yesterday from that big patch that we have at the store. So the next vinegar that I'm going to infuse is one that I like to use on sandwiches. And have you ever gotten like the vinegar on a sub sandwich like at Subway? Well, this is that, but better. And it's really good if you mix it with a mayonnaise and put it like on a club. It's delicious. So I'm going to use a combination of sage, rosemary, and parsley. Now these are probably a little bit more pungent as far as like how strong they are, and I'm going to be using a red wine vinegar. So we use this for sandwiches, and so that's what I'm going to make it for. And what I love about this is even if I run out of what I make here today, I can make more of this with dried, because remember, if you use dried, you can just use half the amount of herbs versus fresh. So here I'm going to do a small one again. So I'm doing one of these smaller ones, and I'm going to pack in my parsley. And again, I just want like about a half a cup of each one. I've got some garden sage. And so you don't have to do anything. You're just shoving the herbs in the jar. Now the rosemary, I might have to make it a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to cut it into smaller pieces. But you can shove it in there, stem and all. Because at the end of the day, when this is all done infusing, you're going to strain it out. And it's not going to be left in there. Okay? So there you go. I'm just going to pack that in there. All right, and I've been doing this long enough that I can eyeball kind of what I'm doing. And then I'm going to pour my vinegar on top. There it is. Put my lid on and do the exact same thing that I did with the other ones. So easy. I am cleaning out my measuring cup in between each vinegar, and then I wipe it out with a single service paper towel. That way it stays clean and sanitary. The same thing with my surface, my knife, in between my cuts and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're cleaning up in between each of your vinegars. All right, this next one I'm going to do is one I've been doing for a while, and I really like this one. This one is really good to use pretty much on anything. I like to drizzle it on vegetables when I'm cooking chicken, and it's really good to make a marinade, like with some oil and some other like salt, pepper, things like that, and then you rub it all over your chicken when you roast it. It's really super good. So I use the champagne vinegar to make this one, and this one I don't even measure. I basically take 5 to 6 cloves of garlic and I shove it in the jar, and then I take my French tarragon and I take some scissors and I just cut it into smaller pieces so that I can get it in there. And then I shove it in here and I just pack this thing full. And then I just fill it up with the champagne vinegar and let it infuse. It is super light, but crazy flavorful. And I love tarragon. It's like one of my favorites. So this is a French tarragon, and here it grows as a perennial. So I just love it. All right, so there you go. And then I just take my champagne vinegar and I just fill it up. Oh, and you know what? I think I'm going to take off this little thing. There we go. So it'll pour a little faster. There it is. I'm going to fill it up to about a 1/2 inch from the top. Put my little thing back on here, put my lid on, shake it up, and let it set. And again, this one infuses pretty quick, about 2 weeks. So this one's pretty fast. All right, the next vinegar I'm going to make is an Italian vinegar. It's all kind of your Italian herbs, garlic, and then I'm going to use the white wine vinegar. I'm going to make a bigger batch because I use this a lot. This is really good, like an Italian dressing, to make your vinegar base for an Italian dressing. You don't have to cut up all those herbs or buy a packet or have all that artificial crap in it. I use this, and I use a good olive oil, and I mix it up, and it makes a beautiful dressing. It's good on pastas. It's good drizzled on vegetables. It's good on salad. I love this one, so I make a big one of it. So what I'm going to do is I have a very kind of specific recipe. I've got 2 sprigs of parsley. I have 4 sprigs of Italian oregano. I'm going to shove that right in there. I have 2 sprigs of garden sage, 2 sprigs of rosemary, and I have 2 big sprigs of basil. Then I'm also going to drop in, because I like extra garlic. So if you don't like garlic, don't put as much garlic in, but I've got 5 cloves of garlic. Get back here. That's going to go in there. And then I'm going to add some peppercorns to it. So about a tablespoon of peppercorns in there. Okay. And then I'm going to add my white wine vinegar. This makes the best Italian vinegar. It is so delicious. So if you don't want to make any, make this one. It's the best. You want to be the Martha Stewart of your Thanksgiving table, make a compound butter. They are so cool. And they make you look like a chef. And even if you don't know how to cook, you can do this. It's pretty super easy. You basically go get some butter and soften it in a dish. And then you just need some fresh herbs and whatnot and a recipe. So I'm going to do 2 different ones. One is my Thanksgiving butter that I put out, and we serve it with like a sweetbread. We like to do fried biscuits. So we'll take the biscuits and we'll drop them in oil and fry them and make like a fried bread. And then this is really good on that. Or if you have a sweet breakfast bread, this is really good. The other one that's really good, this is like an Italian butter. It's got like an everything herb in it, but it is wonderful if you're serving rolls. And what you do is we make little logs out of it, and then you freeze the logs, and then you cut them into little slices and lay it on in a dish, and you look like Martha Stewart. So let's go ahead and make those. So the herbs that I'm going to use are rosemary. I have onion chives. I have oregano, parsley. I have some basil, some tarragon, and some thyme. I also have some salt and pepper. I have some orange peel, and I have a few dried, where they went. I have a few dried cranberries. So those are all the ingredients that I need to make 3 butter logs. I have 3 sticks of butter. Now you don't make this with margarine, you guys. You make it with butter. So the big one that we're going to make with the 2 sticks of butter is the big Italian, everything, seasoning to serve on the rolls. And the other one that we're going to make is a smaller one. It's going to be the cranberry butter. I'm going to make mine now and stick them in the freezer. They're good in the freezer for 3 to 4 months, but you want to use them up. In the fridge, only a couple of weeks. But I can make this now and I'll have it for Thanksgiving and I don't have to worry about making it. I just got to remember that I put it in the freezer. Another thing that you can do with butter is make a potato bomb. Those are awesome. Right, this is a potato bomb. And basically what it is it's butter that we softened. And then we added chives, parsley, cooked crisp bacon, cheddar cheese, salt and pepper. And then we took our cookie scoop and we scooped them out on a piece of wax paper, put it on a cookie sheet, put it in the freezer and froze them. And then when they were frozen, we took them and we put them in a Ziploc bag. And when we have a baked potato, we get one of these out. I know I'm having baked potatoes and I throw it in the fridge so it thaws out and voila, there you go. How awesome is that? And these will be good in the freezer again for 3 months. Now, when you're making compound butters, you do want to have, that's where the sharp knife comes into play, because you do want to have a sharp knife to cut this stuff up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep all the herbs because you don't want the stems. So when I do the basil, I just clean that basil off and I'm just going to pull all of the leaves off. And if you pull backwards on the stem, they come off a lot easier. See, I don't want that woody stem in my butter because that'll be hard to eat. So I just really want leaves. Now, on some of the softer stemmed ones like parsley, you can eat the leaves, but they're a little bit bitter, so I like to just take the leaves. So I'm going to clean all of the leaves off of the stems, and I'm just going to throw those stems away. And then I'm going to chop up each one really small, put them in their piles, and then I'll add the ingredients to each of the recipes that I want to use as I need it. Okay, the first one we're going to make is the cranberry butter. So I need half a cup of butter, that's 1 stick, and then I need about a heaping tablespoons of cranberries, and I did chop those up. I want about a half of a tablespoon of parsley. So I don't know, I don't measure, about a half a tablespoon, and then I want some basil, and I want about a half of a teaspoon of basil. So not a lot of basil, okay? Then I'm going to add just a little bit of orange peel. So I don't know, that much. I'm sorry. I'm not a measure person. I kind of just put everything together. And then I am going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt to this. Okay, this is unsalted butter. And then, now you could do this with a blender, but then you got to get all the butter off of the blender. I like to just do it with a flat bottom spoon because I can mix it all in here really well with the spoon, all nice and mixed. And see, that was really super easy if your butter is already soft. And I'm going to plop my butter down onto my wax paper. Okay, so there you go. That was easy enough to do. And I just use my fingers, you know, because I'm the one that's eating this. So here we go. And what I do is I just kind of form it into a log. Okay, kind of like that. Then I'm going to get a paper towel, dry my hands off, and then I'm going to roll it in the wax paper and then twist the ends. Okay, so then I just take my wax paper, okay, see, and I can roll it into a nicer log. Those are my other two. Okay, you can make it as fat or as skinny as you want. Okay. See, and I use the paper towel, see, to mold it into a log. And then I'm going to roll it up. And then I'm just going to twist these ends like that. See, there's my log. And then I'm going to drop this down inside of a Ziploc bag, a big one. Okay, so I marked this one CB. See, and then I have my freezer bag right here. I'm going to put 1 cranberry log, 2 everything logs. And then I'm going to put them in my freezer. And then these will be ready for me to pull out and use at Thanksgiving. All right, now let's make the everything butter. So this butter here, this is 2 sticks or 1 cup. This is my everything, and I'm going to be putting in thyme, rosemary, oregano, parsley, basil, and tarragon. I couldn't remember what the last one was. Okay, and as you can see, I've chopped them all up into little pieces like this. And basically what I want is I want about a half a cup for every pound of butter. So if I were to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I got about 7 different ones here. And I just basically want to fill up my half cup with these. And I just keep going to the different piles and putting them in here. And I'm basically using pretty much everything I had. See, there's my full half cup. And if you look at my cutting board here, see, there's not a lot left on here, you guys. Okay. So there you go. And now I'm going to dump it into my butter. Right here in the butter it goes. And I'm going to be adding some salt and pepper. So that's about a half a teaspoon of pepper and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And I used kosher salt, but you could use sea salt too. All right, again, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to mash it down with the back of my spoon. And just start mixing that in there. Roll it up, twist, and put my 3 logs in here, just like that. And then I'm going to roll the bag up. And as I'm doing it, I'm pushing the air out. There we go. And in the freezer, it'll go. I don't use the oils as much as I use the vinegars, and I do the oils a couple different ways. So I like to infuse them in a jar, and I do a warm infusion. And basically what I do is I stuff whatever dried herbs I want into the jar. I use the littler jars, and then I fill this up with oil. So this is a half pint, holds a little, about a half a cup by the time you put all the herbs in it. And then what I do is I put them in a water bath inside my crock pot. So I don't put the lid on it or anything. What I do is I have a little washcloth down here at the bottom just so that it gives it a little bit of cushion. I fill it up with enough water in my crock pot that it comes to the bottom of my jar right here. Then what I do is I turn my crock pot on as low as it'll go. And I have one of those crock pots that's got the settings on it. So I can set this one for 10 hours, which is as low as it'll go. And that's about how long I want to infuse these. Then once the 10 hours is up, this crock pot will switch over to a warm holding mode, which is totally fine. And I don't burn any of my herbs. And what this does is instead of doing a cold infusion, I'm doing a warm infusion, and it's just faster. So I'll do the herbs that I want to do in the warm infusion. And then what I do is I leave the lid off. I let them completely let them completely cool to room temperature. And then again, I take them and I take my funnel, I take my cheesecloth, I pour the oil through there, get all of the herbs out into a clean sanitized jar, label it, put it in my dark, dry cupboard. I don't leave these out as decorations. The first oil that we're going to make is going to be the one that I use for making Italian dressing. So I mix it with that vinegar that we made, and it makes this kick butt Italian dressing. That's good like on a pasta salad. It's good drizzled on salad. It's just fabulous. It's even good on a sandwich. So I do use that one a lot, and I make that one with an olive oil. Now, there is a difference between olive oil and avocado oil as far as the flavor goes. But if you're going to use an oil to roast things in your oven, like drizzle it on vegetables or use it to make like a rub where you add other things to it and then you're going to rub it all over the meat, you want to use avocado oil because olive oil has a smoking temperature of, what is it? 320, anything over 320. And so most of the time when you're roasting at like 400. And so avocado oil won't smoke like olive oil. So I use the olive oil for things that I'm going to be making that are like cold, or maybe I'm going to just saute something in a pan with it, or I'm going to add it to a soup or something like that. That's not going to be over 320 degrees. In the oven, if I'm roasting everything I make, I always use the avocado oil. That way I don't smoke out my house. I use probably the most oregano out of everything. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my herbs and I'm going to put them into my jar. And did you see I crushed it a little bit in my hands to release some of that flavor? Okay, and that's what I do. When I strip it into the jar, I just strip it in. I don't crush any of it, so it's in here nice and loose. Okay, then I want a little bit of rosemary. Okay, so I'm just going to get a little bit of rosemary. And you know what? I don't measure this. I wish I did, but I don't. So if I had to guess, that was probably 2 tablespoons, a tablespoon of rosemary. The lemon thyme is not like my favorite. You could use savory if you don't want to use thyme. And when I put this in here, I left it on the stems. So I am going to strip it off the stems. And I'd say that I'm using like 3 sprigs of the thyme in my little jar here. Okay, so 3 sprigs of that. That's it. Oh, come back here. All right, and then I'm also going to use, I did the Greek oregano already, the lemon thyme, the rosemary. Here we go. I have some pesto basil. Now basil is sweet, so if you like your dressing more on the sweet side, use a little bit more basil. I got about a tablespoon here. I like oregano better than I do basil, but I'll put like the 1 tablespoon of basil in there, and then I'm going to put some sage in here. So I'm going to grab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 leaves. So I threw in 6 sage leaves. Okay, so I'm all done with that. Okay, so there you go. It's all full with what I want in there. And then what I'm going to do, now you can add more or less depending on how strong you want this to be. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add my olive oil. And I'm going to make sure that my herbs are 100% sunk into the olive oil. And then I'm going to put it in this water bath. But I'm going to make sure the water doesn't get into the jar. Okay, so I'm going to add my oil. And an extra virgin olive oil is really what you want to be using. All right, so I have filled this almost to the top, and I'm just going to get a spoon and I'm going to push it down in there. I'll be right back. All right, I'm going to push that down in there. So everything is covered. All right, and then I'm going to set it down in my bath here on my little towel. I want to make sure that the water, and I'll show you with the camera, is as high in here as the oil is in the jar, okay? So there you go. There's that one. All right, so my last one that I'm going to do is my roasting oil. I'm going to make it with the avocado oil. And basically what I do is I kind of do a 50-50 blend of the rosemary and the tarragon. Now, tarragon is a milder spice than the rosemary. So I stuff that one in the bottom. See, and I get about half of the jar full. If I were to push it down in there, I got about half of it in the jar. When I spilled. So let me pick that up. Oh, my kitchen smells so good right now. I can't even tell you how good it smells. After chopping up all those herbs for the compound butter. Oh, okay. Then I'm going to do the rosemary. Okay. So I'm going to add the rosemary in here. All right, there it is. Put my lid back on. And I know you'd be tempted to store all of this stuff out on the counter because it's so pretty, but you can't. You need to store it in a cool, dry place to get as much shelf life out of it as you can. See, there they are, and the water level is about to right there, and these will just sit in here for, 10 hours, just infusing away. Okay, the last easy way that I like to do it is in an ice cube tray. I do 2 different blends. They're super easy. You just basically chop up your herbs, and I use fresh herbs. And then what I do is I take a glass and I just mix them up in the glass. This is parsley and onion chives. I like to use this for eggs. So if I'm going to scramble eggs or make a frittata, we eat a lot of those. We eat a lot of eggs. Then I can just grab one of these and throw it in the pan, and then it just melts. And so what I do is I just dump it into an ice cube tray. And I pack it down in there. And then I'm going to fill this ice cube tray with my olive oil. And then I'm going to stick it in the freezer. Normally I'll do like the whole, and I will cut up some more. And I'm going to do the whole tray. But when I do this, I want to make sure that it's the oil is completely covering the herbs. So make sure you push them down in there. And then I'll put them in a Ziploc, pop them out, put them in a Ziploc bag, put them in the freezer, and they're good for like 6 to 8 months. So good shelf life on the olive oil ones. But I'm just going to fill each individual cell with my olive oil. And then I'm just going to take, I use my fingers, but you could use the back of a spoon, and I'm going to push them down in there. You can do this with butter too, but I find that the butter doesn't have as good of a shelf life as the oil. Okay, this last thing I'm going to do is just for fun, okay? So you could do this if you're having a date night, or you're having a group of friends over, book club, a dinner party, whatever you want to do. This is so fun to do, and it's super easy. So you go find yourself some good crusty bread, and you can either slice it up and serve it toasted or untoasted. I find that it's easier to do it untoasted because it's not hot, you know, by the time everyone's eating it. So what I do is I get one of these little shot glasses like this. You can actually buy these like at the dollar store, and then find yourself some kind of plate that's decorative. So you can use, I have white because I like them, but basically what I do is I will take a balsamic glaze and I will glaze my plate with just a little drizzle. I can do this. Get my lid out of the way here. It doesn't have to be a big drizzle, you can just be a little bit of a drizzle, okay? And then I'm going to take some fresh pepper, and I'm going to put that pepper right on top of my little guy right there. So it kind of just looks like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an olive oil bomb, and then it's going to sit on the plate, and then there's going to be bread in the middle, and everybody will have this plate, and then you dump this onto your plate, and then you eat the bread. It's delicious. So basically what I do is I use some fresh herbs and I use some olive oil. So the first thing I do is I put just a little bit of olive oil in the bottom, and then I'm going to add whatever herbs I like. So this is Italian parsley, I've got a little rosemary, and I've got some oregano. Okay, put a little bit more parsley in there. And then I'm going to add some shredded Parmesan cheese. You could use grated Parmesan cheese too in a pinch. You don't have to have shredded. Okay, so see how I've filled that up in layers like that? And then I'm going to take my olive oil and I'm going to fill it to just above where the cheese is. And then I'm going to set that on the plate. And then you can either serve it with the crusty bread, and I don't have any crusty bread, but I got some rye bread, or you can have like a basket in the middle with the bread, and then that is their plate. So now it's, you know, it's dinner time, and this is the appetizer part, okay? And so how fun is this to have a conversation over something pretty like this? And so what you do is you just dump this onto your plate like that, into your olive oil bomb, and then you use your bread. Get a little bit of that, a little bit of this. So good. So there you go. Super duper easy to do. You just got to find the time to do it. Growing them is easy. Harvesting them is easy. Drying them is easy. I really spent an hour planting. I spent an hour harvesting. I spent an hour sticking them on the hangers to dry them. I spent an hour, not even, I think I spent maybe 30 minutes shoving them in the jars. And then today, if I hadn't been filming, this might have taken me 2 hours to do all of the chopping and whatnot to make everything that I made. But this is going to take me through the whole winter. That is so awesome. I love it. I love growing my own herbs and using them. So I hope this, you know, inspired you to maybe grow some herbs next year. Or if you've got all those herbs outside and you don't know what to do with them, here you go. Grab a couple hours and make yourself some oils, butters, and vinegars. I'm Michelle. Thanks so much for watching. You guys have a great day. Keep on gardening. Bye, everybody.